He thought silence meant safety, until a dog proved him wrong. Before the sun clears the low hills of Camp Redstone, the air already carries heat, dry and metallic, like something waiting to be struck. Boots move across gravel in steady rhythm, men and women in uniform passing through another morning that promises nothing but repetition. Lucas Hale stands apart from them, not by distance, but by stillness, the kind that settles into a man after too many things go wrong in places no one talks about. His uniform is clean, pressed, exact, but his eyes are somewhere else, fixed on a small bronze plaque mounted beside the training yard fence. Names etched into metal. 5 of them. The last one is the only one he sees. He doesn't touch it. He doesn't have to. The memory sits closer than skin. A handler nearby gives a sharp whistle, breaking the quiet with purpose, and a line of German shepherds moves in sync with their partners, precise, obedient, predictable. Lucas watches them without interest. Predictable used to mean safe. It doesn't anymore. A transport truck rumbles in from the east gate, tires crunching over loose stone, engine idling rough like it's been pushed too long. The back doors swing open with a hollow clang, and a single crate is dragged down, wood worn, edges splintered just enough to tell a story no one bothered to write down. A handler flips open the latch, expecting noise, resistance, something normal. What steps out instead is quiet. A German shepherd, lean, sable-coated, darker along the spine, lighter at the chest, eyes catching the early light in a way that doesn't reflect it, but holds it. The dog doesn't bark, doesn't scan the crowd like the others. It just stands there, steady, breathing slow, as if it already understands something the rest of them missed. Ghost, someone mutters, reading off the tag clipped loosely to the crate. Unpredictable, not suitable for advanced ops. A few chuckles pass through the group, the kind that fill space without meaning anything. Lucas turns slightly, not because of the voice, but because of the silence that follows. Ghost lifts his head and looks straight at him. Not past him, not through him, at him. It lasts longer than it should. Long enough to feel intentional. Lucas exhales once, slow, controlled, like he's pushing something back down where it belongs. Assign him to someone else, he says, voice even, flat, the tone of a man who has already decided. I don't need a dog. The handler shrugs, about to call another name, but Ghost moves before the command lands. One step, then another. Not fast, not hesitant, direct. The distance closes until there's only a few feet between them, dust lifting softly under each paw. Lucas doesn't move. He's faced worse than a stare. But there's something about this one that doesn't fit the rules he knows. Ghost stops and sits, posture straight, ears forward, eyes still locked on Lucas like he's been waiting. No signal given. No bond formed. Not yet. Around them, the base continues its rhythm. Voices, engines, the distant clatter of equipment. Life moving forward without pause. But in that small pocket of still air, something shifts, subtle enough to miss if you weren't looking, quiet enough to matter if you were. Lucas glances once more at the plaque behind him, then back at the dog who refuses to look away. He doesn't understand it. Not yet. But for the first time in a long while, something inside him doesn't feel finished. It feels interrupted. The desert does not forgive hesitation. And by mid-morning the heat settles in like a weight across the shoulders, pressing down on every movement, every thought, every breath drawn through dry air. Lucas Hale stands at the edge of the training grid, arms crossed, watching the dust swirl low across the field as handlers run their dogs through scent drills, each command sharp, each response immediate, clean, controlled. That is how it is supposed to work. That is how it used to work for him. Beside him, a clipboard rests against a metal post, the assignment written in clean block letters he did not sign for, but did not refuse either. Ghost. Temporary pairing. Evaluation pending. The words feel clinical, detached, like someone else made the decision for him, or maybe like he stopped caring enough to argue. A whistle cuts through the air, high and precise, and Lucas steps forward onto the field, boots sinking slightly into loose sand as the sun reflects off every surface in harsh, unforgiving light. Ghost follows without being called. Not close enough to be at heel, not far enough to be disobedient. Just there, present, watching. Lucas does not look down. Search, he says. Voice low, controlled. the single word carrying expectation more than instruction. The drill is simple. A hidden training aid buried somewhere beneath the marked grid, scent contained, pattern predictable, designed to reward discipline over instinct. Every other dog on the field moves with purpose, noses low, tails steady, working the pattern they were taught. Ghost does not. He walks forward 10 feet, pauses, lifts his head into the wind, as if reading something written in air instead of ground. Then he turns. Not sharply, not confused. Intentionally. Away from the grid. A few handlers nearby glance over, some with mild curiosity, others with the quiet judgment reserved for mistakes that should not happen at this level. Lucas feels it, the weight of their attention, the unspoken question. Fix it. He exhales slowly. Negative, he says, firmer this time. Work the grid. Ghost stops. The dog stands still for a long second, ears twitching slightly, eyes not on the ground, not on the markers, but somewhere beyond the training lanes where the fence line hums faintly in the heat. Then, without protest, Ghost lowers his head and steps back onto the grid, moving in a loose pattern that mimics compliance but lacks conviction. Lucas watches every step, every shift in posture, something in his chest tightening not from frustration, but from recognition he cannot place. This is wrong. Not the behavior. The feeling. A memory flickers at the edge of thought, too fast to catch, like a shadow passing across sunlight. Mark. An instructor calls out from the far side as another team successfully locates their target, praise following, routine, expected. Lucas kneels briefly, brushing his fingers across the sand where Ghost paused earlier, the grains warm, undisturbed, nothing there, nothing that should matter. He straightens, jaw set. Again, he says quietly. The second run begins, and this time Ghost moves faster, more aligned, more acceptable, until halfway through the grid he freezes. No command given, no signal expected, just a sudden, absolute stillness. His body tightens, not with fear, not with confusion, but with certainty. Lucas feels it before he understands it, that shift in the air, the silence that presses in around them, subtle but undeniable. Continue. Lucas orders, sharper now, the word cutting through the moment like it needs to. Ghost does not move. Around them, the rest of the field continues, boots, voices, distant engines, life refusing to notice what stands still in its middle. Lucas steps closer, close enough to see the slight flare of Ghost's nostrils, the focused tension in his frame, the way his gaze fixes not on the ground, but on a point 10 yards ahead, just beyond the marked boundary where the drill says nothing exists. There is nothing there, Lucas says under his breath, more to himself than to the dog. But Ghost does not look back. He does not question. He does not yield. And for the briefest moment, Lucas does not give another command. Because something in that stillness feels familiar. Not safe. Not logical. But known. And that is what unsettles him the most. The heat does not break. It builds, rising in slow waves from the ground until the horizon itself seems to tremble, and Lucas Hale feels it in his chest more than on his skin. That pressure that comes when something refuses to resolve. Ghost remains frozen, 10 yards from the boundary, eyes fixed on a place that does not belong to the exercise, a place no map marks, no instructor acknowledges. Around them, the rhythm continues, commands called, pause moving, success measured in clean, predictable outcomes. But here there is only stillness, and the longer it holds, the louder it becomes. Continue. Lucas repeats, quieter now. Less command, more question. Ghost does not move. A breeze slides across the training yard, thin and dry, carrying the faint scent of heated metal and distant fuel, and something else beneath it, something Lucas cannot name, only feel, like a memory brushing against the edge of thought. He takes one step closer, boots pressing into the sand with a soft crunch that sounds too loud in the silence they have created. There is nothing there, he says again. But the words feel weaker now, like they belong to someone else, someone who still believes that control comes from certainty. Ghost's ears flick once, then settle forward again, body aligned toward that same invisible point, unwavering. Lucas follows the line of his gaze, eyes narrowing against the glare, scanning the stretch just beyond the markers where the ground shifts slightly, almost imperceptible, a subtle difference in texture, a faint discoloration where the sand meets a strip of packed earth near the outer fence. It is nothing. It should be nothing. And yet the air there feels heavier, as if it remembers something the rest of the field has forgotten. A voice calls out from behind him, distant but clear. "Handler, keep your dog on task." Lucas does not turn. He hears the authority, the expectation, the weight of protocol pressing back into place, but it does not land the same way it used to. Because something else is louder now, not in sound, but in memory. A flash, quick and sharp, not visual but felt. The echo of a moment where hesitation meant everything, where a pause could have changed the shape of what came next. He swallows once, throat dry, and for a second he is not standing in a training yard but somewhere colder, quieter, where the air carried a different kind of weight, and someone beside him had stopped, just like this, just long enough to be noticed, just long enough to matter. Lucas exhales slowly, the breath steady but not calm, and lowers his hand slightly, the signal he would normally give to push forward, to override instinct with command. It lingers there, suspended between what he knows and what he feels. Ghost does not look at him. He does not seek permission. He simply waits, anchored to that unseen point with a certainty that does not ask to be understood. The wind shifts again, brushing across Lucas's face, and for the first time he notices the absence of something, the absence of noise in that direction. No distant clatter, no echo from the fence line, just a pocket of quiet that does not fit. "Show me," Lucas says under his breath, the words barely forming, more instinct than decision. His hand drops completely. No command follows. No correction. Just silence. Ghost moves. Not fast, not hesitant, but with a calm precision that feels deliberate. Each step placed with care as he crosses the boundary no one told him to cross, closing the distance to that small, unmarked patch of ground. Lucas follows a step behind, heart steady but aware, every sense sharpening without warning, the world narrowing to the space between them and that point ahead. When Ghost stops again, it is closer now, close enough for Lucas to see it clearly, the faint outline beneath the surface, not obvious, not alarming, but different, just enough to matter. He crouches slowly, reaching out, fingers brushing the ground, feeling the subtle shift beneath the top layer, the way the earth gives just slightly where it should not. His breath catches, not in fear, not in shock, but in recognition, quiet and heavy. Behind him, the training yard continues, unaware, unchanged. But here, in this small pocket of disrupted sand, something has already shifted. Lucas does not look at the others. He looks at Ghost. And for the first time, he does not see a problem to fix. He sees a warning he almost ignored. The ground gives just enough to confirm what instinct already whispered, and Lucas Hale does not need anyone to tell him that something here does not belong, because he has felt this before in a different place, under a different sky, when the air carried the same quiet tension that comes right before everything changes. He keeps his hand on the sand a moment longer, fingers still, sensing rather than searching, while Ghost stands beside him, steady and unshaken, as if this moment was never in question. "Handler," the voice comes again, closer now, firmer, carrying authority that expects obedience. "Step away from the boundary." Lucas does not move right away. The command reaches him, but it lands differently now, like an echo instead of an order. He lifts his hand slowly, brushing the dust from his fingers, and rises to his feet with a calm that feels unfamiliar, not forced, not rehearsed, but earned in the space between doubt and decision. He glances once toward the instructors, their silhouettes sharp against the glare, watching, waiting for correction, for compliance, for the system to reset itself. But Lucas does not reset. He looks back down at Ghost, and the dog meets his gaze for the first time since stepping forward, not searching, not questioning, just holding it, steady, certain. That same quiet certainty that had unsettled him now settles something else instead, something deeper, something that has been out of place for a long time. The wind shifts again, brushing across the field, carrying a faint metallic scent that does not belong to the open desert, subtle but present, threading through the heat like a warning that chose not to speak louder. Lucas inhales once, slow, deliberate, letting that scent settle into memory, matching it against something he has tried not to revisit. It fits too easily. "Mark this location," he says, voice level, controlled, but no longer detached. One of the nearby handlers hesitates, caught between instruction and protocol, then moves quickly, placing a small flag into the sand a few feet from where Ghost stands. The rest of the field begins to slow, attention shifting, curiosity replacing routine as eyes turn toward the disruption. Lucas does not acknowledge them. His focus stays on the ground, on the slight variation in texture, the way the sand sits differently, as if something beneath it changed the shape of what should be simple. He steps back half a pace, giving space not out of caution, but out of respect for what he does not yet fully understand. Ghost remains where he is, posture relaxed now, but still attentive, as if the message has already been delivered and the rest is no longer his responsibility. You called that, Lucas murmurs, barely audible, not expecting a response, not needing one. The words are not praise. They are recognition. Behind him, footsteps approach, measured and deliberate, the presence of command arriving with quiet authority. Explain, the instructor says, stopping just short of the marked spot, eyes scanning the ground, then the dog, then Lucas. It is not an accusation. Not yet. It is a demand for logic in a moment that did not follow it. Lucas does not rush his answer. He looks once more at the place where Ghost stopped, then at the faint line where the training boundary ends, then back at the instructor. He refused the pattern. Lucas says, tone steady, precise. Not hesitation. Direction. The instructor studies him for a long second, weighing the words, the implication, the deviation from expected behavior. Around them, the air feels different now, tighter, as if the entire field has leaned slightly toward this single point of uncertainty. A technician is called over, equipment brought in, movements careful, controlled, professional, the system stepping in to verify what instinct already claimed. Lucas steps back another pace, giving room, but he does not leave. He watches as tools press into the sand, as careful hands reveal what lies just beneath the surface, not dramatic, not obvious, but enough to confirm that something had been placed where nothing was supposed to be. Not part of the drill, not part of the plan. A quiet irregularity that would have gone unnoticed if everything had worked exactly as designed. Lucas exhales slowly, the breath leaving him like something released. After being held too long, he does not look at the instructors. He does not look at the others. He looks at Ghost. And in that moment, he understands something simple and unspoken, something no training manual ever wrote down. The dog did not fail the exercise. The exercise failed to see what mattered. And for the first time since the names on that plaque stopped feeling distant, Lucas does not feel like he is standing alone in the space between what is taught and what is true. The afternoon settles into a slower rhythm, the kind that stretches shadows long across the training yard and softens the sharp edges of the day. But Lucas Hale does not leave when the others rotate out. He remains near the far edge of the field where the boundary line fades into open desert, where the ground holds fewer rules and the wind carries more truth than instruction ever could. Ghost moves with him without being asked, staying close but not confined, his presence steady, like something that has already chosen its place. The noise of the base drifts behind them, boots on gravel, distant commands, the hum of engines preparing for evening rotations. But here there is space, enough for thought, enough for memory to rise without being forced back down. Lucas stops near the fence, resting one hand lightly against the warm metal, feeling the heat stored from hours under the sun, and for a moment he just stands there, breathing, letting the silence settle around him instead of pushing against it. Ghost circles once and sits a few feet away, angled toward him, not watching the horizon, not scanning for instruction, just present, attentive in a way that does not demand anything in return. You do not follow patterns, Lucas says quietly, his voice low enough that it belongs more to the air than to conversation. You follow something else. The words hang there, not needing an answer, but marking a shift that has already taken place. He glances down at the dog, studying the lines of his posture, the calm in his breathing, the absence of tension where there should be readiness, and he realizes that what he once labeled as unpredictability now feels like clarity, a different kind of discipline that does not come from repetition, but from awareness. The wind picks up slightly, brushing across the dry ground and carrying the faint scent of dust and distant fuel again, but softer now, less urgent, like a reminder rather than a warning. Lucas closes his eyes for a brief second, and in that moment, the training yard fades, replaced by a memory that does not ask permission before it arrives. A narrow path, a quiet pause, someone beside him stopping just long enough to matter. He sees it now with a different weight, not as a failure to act, but as a failure to listen. His eyes open slowly, returning to the present, to the steady shape of the dog sitting in front of him, and something inside him shifts into alignment, subtle but real. "I missed it," he says, not to Ghost, not entirely. But the dog hears it anyway, ears flicking once in acknowledgement of something beyond words. Lucas exhales, long and steady, and pushes himself off the fence, stepping forward into the open stretch of ground beyond the marked lanes. No cones, no flags, no defined objective, just space. "All right," he murmurs, tone softer now, less command, more invitation. "Show me how you work." He does not give a formal order. He does not set a pattern. He simply moves, slow and deliberate, allowing Ghost to choose the direction. For a second, nothing happens. Then Ghost rises, stretches slightly, and steps forward, not rushing, not hesitating, his path angled not toward the center of the field, but along the edge where structure gives way to instinct. Lucas follows, matching his pace, not leading, not correcting, just staying close enough to observe, to learn. The distance they cover is not far, maybe 20 yards, but it feels different, like stepping into a language that was always there but never spoken aloud. Ghost pauses once, briefly, head lifting, ears shifting as he samples the air, then continues, adjusting course in small increments that make no sense on a map but feel precise in execution. Lucas does not interrupt. He watches, really watches, every movement, every pause, every decision made without command. And for the first time, he understands that control was never the point. Connection was. When Ghost finally stops again, it is not at anything visible, not at any marker or object, but at a place where the wind changes direction, where the air carries a different note, faint but distinct. Lucas steps beside him, looking out over the open stretch of desert, the fading light casting everything in a softer shade, and he does not ask what it means. He simply stands there with the dog, feeling the quiet settle between them, not empty, not uncertain, but full of something he has not trusted in a long time. Something that does not need to be explained to be real. Something that does not come from orders, but from listening to what cannot speak. The light begins to fade, not suddenly, but in a slow surrender. The sun lowering behind the distant ridge until the desert shifts from harsh gold to muted amber, and with it, something inside Lucas Hale softens in ways he does not fully understand. The bass behind them continues its steady rhythm, evening rotations taking over, voices lower now, movements more measured, but out here along the edge where structure thins into open land, the world feels quieter, more honest. Ghost remains beside him, standing still, facing into the wind, as if reading something written beyond sight, something that does not belong to maps or orders. Lucas watches him, not as a handler observing behavior, but as a man trying to understand a language he once ignored. "You do not guess," Lucas says quietly, more certain now, the words carrying weight instead of doubt. "You know." Ghost does not move, but there is a shift in his posture, subtle, almost imperceptible, like acknowledgement without the need for response. The air cools slightly as the sun dips lower, and with it comes a different scent, less sharp, more grounded, dust settling, metal cooling, the day releasing its hold. Lucas inhales slowly, letting it fill his lungs, and for the first time in a long while, the breath does not feel forced. It feels natural. He steps forward again, not toward any objective, not toward any defined point, but simply because it feels right to move. Ghost follows immediately, not waiting for a command, not seeking permission, just aligning, step for step, presence matching presence. They walk in silence for several yards, boots and paws leaving faint impressions in the sand that the wind will erase before morning, but the path still matters in the moment it exists. Then Ghost slows. Not abruptly, not sharply, but with intention. His head lifts slightly, ears angling towards something distant, something Lucas cannot hear. The dog turns a few degrees to the left, adjusting course with quiet certainty, and Lucas follows without question. That is the difference now. No command, no correction, just trust placed in something he cannot measure. They reach a shallow dip in the terrain, a slight depression where the ground feels cooler, the air settling differently, and Ghost stops again. This time, he does not fixate on a single point. He scans slowly, methodically, as if confirming something rather than discovering it. Lucas steps beside him, eyes tracing the same space, but seeing only what the surface offers. Nothing unusual, nothing out of place. And yet the feeling returns, that quiet tension beneath calm, like a memory trying to surface. Lucas closes his eyes for half a second, just enough to listen, not with his ears, but with something deeper, something he had trained himself to ignore. When he opens them again, he does not look for objects. He looks for absence, a gap in sound, a shift in air, a detail that does not fit because it is too quiet, too still. Here, he says softly, not as a conclusion, but as a realization. Ghost remains still, confirming without needing to. Lucas kneels slowly, pressing his hand to the ground again, feeling the subtle difference beneath the surface, the slight give that should not be there, the same quiet irregularity that had revealed itself earlier. His chest tightens, not from fear, not from doubt, but from understanding. This is not luck. This is not coincidence. This is pattern beyond pattern. He exhales, long and steady, and for a moment, the past presses close again. That single moment he has replayed too many times, the one where someone else paused just like this, tried to say something without words, and he chose the mission over the silence. His hand tightens slightly against the ground, then relaxes. I hear you now, he says under his breath, not to the past, not entirely, but to the presence beside him that did not let him repeat it. Ghost shifts his weight, just slightly, then steps closer, closing the last bit of distance between them until there is no space left to misunderstand. Lucas rises slowly, brushing the dust from his hand, and looks out over the darkening horizon where the last light stretches thin across the land. He does not need confirmation from anyone else. He does not need orders to validate what he has learned. Because for the first time, he is not following training. He is following truth. And it did not come from command. It came from a dog who refused to be wrong in silence. The night does not arrive all at once. It settles in layers, the last light fading from the sky until the desert becomes a stretch of shadow and quiet breath, and the bass behind them shifts into a different rhythm, slower, more deliberate, as if even the machines understand the need to move softer in the dark. Lucas Hale stands at the edge of that quiet, the place where the world feels less defined, where lines blur and instinct carries more weight than instruction, and Ghost remains beside him, steady as ever, his silhouette blending into the dim light, eyes catching what little remains of the sky. There is a moment, brief but clear, where Lucas does not think about the past, does not measure the present, does not anticipate what comes next. He simply stands, and that alone feels like something earned. Then the radio at his shoulder crackles to life, the sound sharp against the stillness, pulling him back into structure, into expectation. Hale, report to the south perimeter. Final evaluation run. Live simulation. The voice is calm, but it carries weight, the kind that does not leave room for delay. Lucas closes his eyes for half a second, then opens them again, gaze steady, expression unchanged. Copy, he answers, voice low, controlled. The moment passes, but not entirely. He looks down at Ghost, and the dog is already watching him, not waiting for instruction, not reacting to tone, just aware. Looks like they want to see what you do when it matters, Lucas murmurs, a faint shift in his voice that might have been something close to understanding. Ghost rises smoothly, no hesitation, no anticipation, just readiness that does not need to be announced. They move together, leaving the open stretch behind, stepping back toward the base where lights now flicker on one by one, casting long beams across the ground, illuminating paths that feel narrower than they did in daylight. The south perimeter sits at the far edge of the compound, where training structures give way to a controlled simulation zone, a place designed to test not just skill, but judgment. Lucas has been here before, many times, always with a plan, always with control. Tonight feels different. As they approach, figures move in the low light, instructors setting positions, equipment placed with intention, the air carrying a faint mechanical hum beneath the quiet. Lucas stops just outside the marked zone, the boundary line faint but present, and he feels it again, that subtle shift in awareness, the way his senses sharpen not from tension, but from attention. Scenario brief. An instructor says, stepping forward, clipboard in hand, voice even, professional. Multiple possible placements. Standard sweep. Maintain protocol. Lucas nods once, but the words do not settle the way they used to. Standard does not mean complete. Protocol does not mean correct. He glances down at Ghost, who stands beside him, calm, focused, not looking at the instructor, not scanning the setup, but waiting for something else, something unspoken. Lucas inhales slowly, the air cooler now, carrying traces of dust, metal, and something faintly unfamiliar, something just beneath notice. "We do this your way," he says quietly, not loud enough for anyone else to hear, not a command, not even a decision spoken with authority, just a truth acknowledged between them. The instructor steps back, giving the signal to begin. Lucas does not rush. He steps forward across the boundary line with measured pace, Ghost moving beside him, not ahead, not behind, aligned. The lights cast shifting shadows across the ground, patterns that change with every step, making certainty harder to hold on to. Lucas does not look for markers. He does not search for patterns. He listens. To the air. To the silence between sounds. To the presence beside him that has already proven it sees what he does not. Ghost moves first, not in a straight line, not toward the obvious structures, but along a path that curves gently away from the expected route, his pace steady, his focus unwavering. Lucas follows without question. That is the difference now. Not control. Trust. They pass one structure, then another, the layout designed to guide, to influence, to test adherence to plan, but Ghost ignores it all, cutting across open ground toward a darker corner where the light does not reach as cleanly. Lucas feels the shift before they arrive, that same quiet tension, that subtle absence of something that should be there. Ghost slows, stops, not dramatic, not sudden, just certain. Lucas does not give a command. He does not correct. He simply stands beside the dog, looking into the dim space ahead, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. This is where it matters. Not the training, not the protocol, the choice. And for the first time, he does not feel the need to override what he cannot explain. He lets the silence speak. And he listens. The silence holds longer this time, stretching between Lucas, Hale, and the darkened corner ahead like a breath that refuses to release. And in that space, everything that once felt urgent now feels distant, replaced by something quieter, something that asks for patience instead of control. Ghost stands still beside him, body aligned, ears forward, not tense, not uncertain, but anchored, as if the answer has already been found and is simply waiting to be acknowledged. The faint hum of equipment fades into the background, the lights casting uneven shadows across the ground, and Lucas feels it again, that subtle shift in the air, not something seen, not something heard, but something understood in the same place where memory and instinct meet. He does not move right away. He does not speak. He lets the moment exist without forcing it forward, and for the first time in a long while, that choice does not feel like hesitation. It feels like trust. "All right," he says finally, voice low, steady, not a command, but an agreement. Ghost takes a single step forward, then another, slow and deliberate, guiding rather than searching, leading Lucas toward the edge of the shadow where the light thins, and the ground seems unchanged to anyone who is not looking for what cannot be seen. Lucas follows, each step measured, his focus narrowing not to objects, but to absence, to the places where something feels just slightly out of place. They stop together, close enough now for Lucas to see the faint difference in the surface, a subtle shift in texture, barely noticeable, but there, just enough to matter. He exhales slowly, the breath steady, and kneels, pressing his hand lightly against the ground, feeling the same quiet give beneath the surface that he has learned not to ignore. Behind him, there is movement, instructors watching, waiting, but their presence feels distant, like noise from another room. This moment does not belong to them. It belongs to the space between what is taught and what is true. Lucas lifts his hand and looks at Ghost, really looks, not as a handler assessing performance, but as a man recognizing something he once failed to see. "You did not need me to tell you," he says softly, the words carrying no weight of authority, only acknowledgement. Ghost meets his gaze, calm, steady, the silence between them no longer empty, but full, like a conversation that does not require sound. Lucas rises slowly, brushing the dust from his hand, and steps back, giving space for the instructors to confirm what he already knows. There is movement behind him, equipment brought forward, quiet voices exchanging information, but Lucas does not turn. He keeps his eyes on Ghost, and for a moment, everything else fades. The past does not press in the way it used to. The memory is still there, but it does not carry the same weight, because something has changed, not in what happened, but in what he understands now. He takes a slow breath, the air cool against his skin, and reaches out, not with command, not with expectation, but with something simpler. His hand rests briefly against the side of Ghost's neck, fingers pressing lightly into the fur, grounding, real. Ghost does not move away. He leans in, just slightly, enough to close the distance completely, enough to make the moment tangible. Lucas lowers his forehead gently until it rests against Ghost's, the contact brief, quiet, unnoticed by anyone who is not standing close enough to understand it. There are no words for it. No need for them. Because in that small, still moment, something is returned, not taken, not earned through effort, but given through trust. Lucas closes his eyes for a second, not in exhaustion, not in relief, but in acceptance, and when he opens them again, the world feels steadier, clearer, like something that had been out of place has finally settled. Behind him, a voice calls out, confirming the find, the exercise complete, the evaluation passed, but those words do not define the moment. They only follow it. Lucas straightens, hand falling back to his side, and Ghost steps with him, aligned once more, not because he was told, but because he chooses to stay. Together, they turn away from the shadowed corner and walk back toward the light, their pace even, unhurried, the path ahead. No longer something to control, but something to walk, side by side. And in the quiet space between each step, there is something new, something that does not need to be named to be understood. Not a victory, not a correction, something simpler, something steadier, a kind of grace that does not arrive with noise, but with presence. And it stays. In this deeply emotional cinematic journey, a U.S. Marine finds himself paired with a German Shepherd K9 once labeled unpredictable, and what begins as a routine training assignment slowly transforms into one of the most powerful animal stories about trust, instinct, and redemption. Under the harsh desert sun and within the structured discipline of elite operations training, the Marine struggles with a past shaped by a moment he failed to listen, while the K9, guided by something beyond commands, begins to reveal signals that do not follow protocol, but feel undeniably real. As the training evolves into something more profound, the bond between the Marine and the K9 shifts from control to connection, showing how some animal stories are not about obedience, but about understanding what cannot be spoken. Through quiet moments, subtle warnings, and unseen truths, the K9 leads the Marine to recognize what he once ignored, proving that in the world of elite operations, instinct can carry a truth deeper than any training manual. This story stands among the most compelling animal stories where loyalty is not loud, but steady, and where the smallest pause can change everything. As the Marine learns to trust not just the dog but the silence between actions, the narrative unfolds into a powerful reflection on second chances, unseen signals, and the grace that comes when we choose to listen. Among modern animal stories, this one captures the essence of a bond that transcends commands, where a German Shepherd does not just follow, but guides, and where a Marine does not just lead, but learns. In the end, this is one of those rare animal stories that reminds us that sometimes the most important truths are not spoken, they are felt, and sometimes they come on four paws, quietly changing a life that once refused to hear them. Character 1. A 34-year-old white male U.S. Marine, rugged face, short brown hair, light stubble, intense calm eyes, wearing modern military training uniform, front view, realistic lighting, natural skin texture, no cartoon, no CGI, no illustration, cinematic style, grounded atmosphere character 2. A 6-year-old German Shepherd K9, sable coat black and tan, strong muscular build, alert ears, intelligent amber eyes, standing full body, front view, realistic fur texture, natural lighting, no cartoon, no CGI, no illustration, cinematic realism, grounded presence.